You are listening to The Vocal Technologist. Spoken tech for your ears.
Tools are getting better, output is getting worse. Both are true.
Yeah.
I was looking at the notes for Vocal Technologist and realized we've just got this massive contradiction staring us in the face.
Right, because if you look at the actual numbers, it completely blows up that whole Silicon Valley fairy tale.
Exactly. You've heard the narrative, right?
Yeah.
You just press a button and AI writes your code, and boom, you magically get a billion-dollar company.
Which is just not how it works. The hard data tells a completely different and, frankly, much harder story.
So if you're sitting there thinking an AI coding assistant is going to magically fix your startup, you really need to hear this. Because you and I are getting right into the guts of it. We're picking apart the really messy reality of building software, running operations, and, actually surviving in the AI era.
Yeah, we should definitely start with the productivity paradox, because this is where the contradiction is just the most obvious.
Right. We've got this baked-in assumption that if you give a developer an AI coding assistant, they ship faster.
And look, they do. But shipping faster doesn't mean the team or the product is actually getting any better.
Take NVIDIA. They've got, 30,000 developers.
Yeah.
They rolled out AI tools and saw 3 times more committed code. 3 times.
Yeah, that's massive. But, and this is the crucial detail, they didn't see a rise in bugs.
Which sounds great until you look at the massive asterisk attached to that result.
Exactly. NVIDIA didn't just, hand out AI tools and hope for the best. They completely rebuilt their entire engineering workflow from the ground up.
They had to build guardrails.
Right. They restructured around strict issue tracking tools like Linear and code hosting platforms like GitHub. They didn't just add AI, they implemented incredibly rigorous human-in-the-loop review protocols.
So the AI was really just one engine inside a totally overhauled, highly constrained system.
Yeah, it wasn't running wild. Because if you don't rebuild the system to handle the speed, things go sideways heaps fast.
I saw this other data set we looked at, tracking regular teams using AI without those massive guardrails. And these teams finished their epics, their big project milestones, 66% faster.
Which sounds brilliant on paper.
Right. But the bugs per developer skyrocketed by 54%.
And this is exactly where the management dashboard just lies to you.
Oh, 100%.
Like if you're an engineering lead and your dashboard only tracks pull requests or lines of code, everything looks fantastic. The graph is going up and to the right.
It completely hides this dodgy reality.
Yeah, the code base is actually rotting from the inside out because nobody is checking how the pieces fit together.
It's like, well, if you strap a jet engine to a wooden horse cart, you don't get a fighter jet. You just get splintered wood flying at you heaps fast.
Yeah.
You have to rebuild the cart first.
That is a great way to put it. And it's painfully accurate when you look at people trying to build what they call software factories.
Right, the lights out manufacturing pitch.
Exactly. The idea is that the digital factory runs while nobody's on the floor. You've got this coding pipeline where AI agents take a product spec and return working code with 0 human review.
Which sounds like the absolute dream. But the reality is a bit ordinary, isn't it?
It's worse than ordinary. When a company called HumanLayer tried this, they actually set up a lights-out pipeline. Just let the agents run wild.
Oh, no.
Yeah. 3 months later, a massive production bug hits the system. Suddenly, the human team is dropped into a code base that literally nobody has been reading or maintaining.
Because the agents wrote all of it.
Right. The co-founder had to spend 2 solid weeks manually rewriting the core patterns just to fix it. Because agents can run the assembly line, they can churn out the code all day. But a human still has to understand the factory well enough to know when the machinery is drifting off spec.
If you let it run blind, you get code that solves the prompt brilliantly, but completely breaks the broader architecture.
Exactly. And so the tools themselves are trying to adapt to this mess.
Yeah, you've got the new GitHub Copilot app trying to fix it by acting as a single interface, moving developers from the issues straight to the merge in one window, just trying to keep the context in view.
And then you've got this concept of stacked pull requests.
Which is what exactly?
It's a fascinating mechanical fix. Instead of a developer dropping a massive, 5,000-line update on a Friday afternoon, the concept is breaking large changes into very small, ultra-thin, reviewable chunks.
So a human can actually comprehend that tiny chunk before merging it.
Right. You maintain quality across every layer because it forces this rhythm of constant manageable review, which is really the only way to safely integrate AI-generated code.
And the raw intelligence driving all this code generation just keeps getting cheaper and faster. Like Claude Opus 5 is out, and it's priced at $5 per million input tokens and $25 for outputs.
It's incredibly cheap.
Just to ground that jargon for you, tokens are basically chunks of words. So a million tokens is roughly like feeding the AI a dozen Harry Potter books for the price of a flat white. They've even got a fast mode running at 2.5 times the speed. So the horsepower is absolutely there. The problem we're seeing isn't the engine, it's how we're steering it.
Which brings us to this massive study on how we should actually be working alongside these agents. Melody Ko from NextView ran this brilliant, painful review of 15 of her own AI agent sessions.
Just to see where her time was going minute by minute.
Exactly.
And it wasn't the actual work, was it?
No, the agent wasn't wasting time doing the work. It was wasting time on corrections. She found herself correcting the exact same mistakes over and over again.
Yeah.
When she dug into it, the core issue was she had never actually defined what good meant. She hadn't given the model a standard for quality, tone, or positioning before it started working.
So how do we stop spending our entire day just playing whack-a-mole with AI mistakes?
Well, she suggests designing workflows around what she calls the autonomous middle.
The autonomous middle.
Right. It means the human makes all the complex, high-level judgment calls up front. You define the strict constraints, the taste, the exact standard of what a successful output looks like.
And then the AI takes over.
Yeah, the agent executes the autonomous middle, the heavy lifting, the drafting, the checkable work. Finally, the human reviews it just once at the end. If you find yourself correcting the same mistake twice, it means that rule belonged in your upfront instructions, not your back-end review.
Okay, that makes sense for someone like a senior developer or a manager who already knows what good looks like. But this raises a massive red flag for me when we talk about junior developers.
The unbundling of capabilities.
Exactly. A junior engineer doesn't become a senior engineer by magically being handed senior work on day one. They get there by doing the boring routine work first.
They get in the trenches, they read the messy code base, they see the weird exceptions and the duct tape fixes.
Yeah, they learn the context of why a certain messy workaround exists in the first place. That friction is how they develop taste and intuition.
But if an AI agent automates all that routine work, what happens to the apprenticeship?
Are we just accidentally deleting the environment where the next generation learns context? Like, who is going to catch those weird architectural bugs 3 years from now if nobody's actually reading the code today?
It's a critical vulnerability that the industry is largely ignoring. We're optimizing heavily for short-term output at the total expense of long-term capability.
It's wild.
The most useful question for a founder right now isn't which jobs can AI replace? The question you should be asking is, which human capabilities disappear when I automate this task?
If automating a workflow deletes the exact environment where your team learns context, you're just borrowing against your company's future.
Exactly. Which brings up how founders are actually adapting to this bizarre new landscape.
Oh yeah, I was reading about this venture fund that changed its entire recruitment metric. They're looking for what they call the post-agentic founder.
Right.
And their big filter, they actively want founders who are highly ranked at the video game StarCraft.
Yeah.
Mate, are they having a lend? Hiring someone to run an AI startup based on a video game.
I know it sounds completely absurd until you break down the mechanics of what StarCraft actually requires from a player. It's a real-time strategy game. You have to constantly allocate highly scarce resources.
Right.
You have to sequence parallel work across dozens of different units simultaneously. And most importantly, you have to monitor the map and intervene before one of your automated units wanders off and ruins the entire strategy.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah.
So the job isn't about writing the code or swinging the sword yourself. It's about managing a fleet of autonomous workers.
The required skill set has fundamentally shifted from direct creation to high-level orchestration. A high-level StarCraft player naturally understands how to watch multiple automated systems run in parallel, and they know exactly when to snap their human judgment back into the loop to correct course.
That's fascinating. If you're keen on how we untangle these trends and
Right.
avoid building pointless features, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next one, because we're looking at a fundamental shift in what a founder even does day to day.
Yeah, and that dictates what kind of products actually survive this shift in the market. The overriding rule seems to be obliterate, don't automate.
Obliterate, don't automate.
This is the critical difference between building a nice feature and building an actual market. If you look at recent history, Duolingo didn't try to sell slightly better language software to high schools.
Well,
They went direct to the consumer and completely obliterated the school as the gatekeeper. Coinbase didn't try to sell better ledger software to traditional banks. They went direct to the buyer and obliterated the bank.
And founders building an AI are staring down this exact same choice right now. You can build an AI doctor that simply types clinical notes a bit faster for a human doctor, or you can build an AI doctor that can actually diagnose and prescribe medicine directly to the patient.
The first option leaves the gatekeeper firmly in place. You're just making the old market a tiny bit faster. The second option completely restructures the market.
If your end customer still needs to pass through the exact same gatekeeper after buying your product, you haven't disrupted anything. And the concrete consequence of that is brutal. If you're building a tool that just makes a middle manager 10% faster at their spreadsheet job, you haven't built a startup. You've built a minor software feature. And someone else, probably the massive platform you're building on top of, is just going to steal it and give it away for free.
Which is exactly why the playbooks that are generating massive financial success right now look completely unconventional. Have you looked at the Bending Spoon's S1 breakdown?
Oh, this blew my mind. But
Yeah.
real quick, just give us the translation on what an S1 actually is.
Sure, an S1 is the massive financial document a company has to file before they go public on the stock market. It's basically a financial X-ray.
Right.
It strips the engine bare and forces the company to show exactly how they make their money, what their risks are, and what their actual metrics look like, rather than just their PR spin.
Right, so we look under the hood of Bending Spoons. The founders have this first startup early in their careers, and it completely fails. They're left with $40,000 to their name.
Yeah.
And they have this profound realization. They decide that finding product market fit, inventing the next big thing people love, is mostly just luck. But running a software business, ruthlessly and efficiently, that's a repeatable mathematical skill.
So instead of trying to guess what the market wants and building a new product from scratch, they took $10,000 of their remaining cash and just bought a random app that already had users.
They bypass the luck phase entirely.
Completely. And they've run this exact playbook more than 50 times now. They bought Evernote, they bought Vimeo, they bought WeTransfer.
And they don't buy these companies to revolutionize the product. They just apply this ruthless operational machine to every single one. Pricing tweaks, data harvesting, endless experimentation.
It's a machine.
They ran more than 1,000 distinct monetization tests on an AI photo app called Remini alone. Think about that. Testing different button colors, paywall timings, and subscription tiers dynamically based on user location.
Because the actual app doesn't matter to them. The underlying operational system is the product.
It completely flips the traditional Silicon Valley narrative on its head. We're always told to worship the visionary product builder. The Steve Jobs archetype.
But Bending Spoons is proving that world-class operations applied to deeply average products is a massive, highly predictable financial engine.
And then you've got the completely opposite end of the spectrum with a company called Mercer. They're sitting at a $20 billion annualized revenue run rate. They doubled their revenue in 4 months.
Yeah, you hear $20 billion, an AI company, and you immediately picture massive glowing server farms and genius prompt engineers typing away from day one.
But when you look at how they actually started, their reality was a $71 prize pool.
A $71 prize pool.
They started out as a basic software agency. They physically went to IIT coding clubs in India. They ran cheap Facebook ads. They hosted coding hackathons with a total prize pool that wouldn't even cover a nice dinner out in Sydney.
And when their initial clients asked to hire those specific Indian engineers full-time, the founders didn't retreat to a cave for 6 months to build a complex AI matching algorithm.
No, they ran the entire global marketplace completely manually. They used WhatsApp to message the developers. They used Google Sheets to track who was available.
They used basic PandaDoc templates for the contracts.
Right. The GPT-4 resume scoring and the fancy AI interviewers only came much, much later. They only built the sophisticated tech when the manual WhatsApp process literally started to break under the weight of their own growth.
Yeah.
I have to suss this out with you because it feels backwards. Are founders just getting completely distracted by the AI hype on day one? Like, are they building complex tech before they even know if anyone actually wants to pay for the service?
Yes, constantly. The technology is just an accelerator. If you don't have a clunky manual process that provides real value to a customer first, applying AI to it just accelerates your failure.
That makes total sense.
Mercer proved that Western companies desperately wanted access to vetted overseas talent. The value was the human connection, not the algorithm. The algorithm just allowed them to scale that connection once they knew it was profitable.
It all comes down to the nitty-gritty of survival, extracting the money and staying alive.
Which brings us to the Cal AI onboarding playbook.
Oh, this is a great example.
Most founders are completely obsessed with making their onboarding as frictionless as possible. Click one button with your Google account and you're in. Cal AI did the exact opposite. They made it significantly harder to use their product.
They engineered friction. Before you even saw a price tag, you had to enter your fitness goals, your body type, your specific eating habits, your timeline.
Right.
You sit there answering question after question, watching the app slowly assemble this highly personalized plan on the screen.
It's the IKEA effect. If I just buy a pre-assembled bookshelf, whatever, I don't care about it. But if I spend an hour sweating over the instructions on my living room floor, turning screws with that tiny little wrench, you better believe I value that bookshelf. Yeah, exactly.
By the time Cal AI hits you with the paywall, it doesn't feel like you're buying a generic calorie tracker. It feels like you're abandoning a custom-made plan that you just spent 5 minutes helping to build.
But you have to be careful because that strategy only works if the friction actually adds perceived value. Every single question has to sharpen the product's accuracy or increase the user's emotional commitment.
If you add friction just to harvest data or slow people down, they'll bounce immediately.
100%.
Speaking of brutal realities, we really need to look at the B2B standard pipeline. There's this founder who actually has real sustainable revenue and Fortune 500 customers. He audited his own sales pipeline and realized most of it was entirely fake.
Just hopeful conversations and polite emails masquerading as potential revenue?
Yep. So he published the scorecard he wished he'd had on day one, and the numbers are entirely unforgiving.
They really are.
If you're selling a software product worth over $100,000, one seller needs to book 3 first meetings a week. Of those meetings, 60% must show real buying behavior, not just polite interest, but asking about integration or security protocols. Half of those qualified leads need to close within 90 days.
And 95% of those closed customers have to reach their first retention milestone within a month?
Right. And people can argue with the numbers all they want, but they're hard numbers. You can't excuse them away with, oh, enterprise software has a long sales cycle, or the VP really liked our demo. If your sales team isn't hitting that specific scorecard, you don't have a pipeline. You just have a very expensive hobby.
Which naturally leads to what happens when the numbers simply don't add up. The Domo acquisition is an absolute masterclass in financial survival mechanics.
Yeah.
Usually an acquisition means you sell the company, hand over the keys, investors get whatever cash is left, and you walk away. Domo did something entirely different.
Well, they were about to break a debt covenant. Just to clarify that for a second, a debt covenant basically means they borrowed money with strict rules attached. If their revenue dropped below a certain point, the bank could instantly demand all their money back.
Right. They had a hard deadline.
So the lender essentially had a gun to their head and gave them a deadline to sign a deal. So they sold the software, the intellectual property, and all their customers to Progress Software for $400 million.
But they kept the public company alive.
Right? How?
Progress Software gets the actual functioning business, but what remains of Domo on the stock market is just this empty corporate shell holding about $246 million in cash, and critically, $900 million in accumulated tax losses.
It's wild. They basically sold the engine of the car but kept the chassis because the chassis has this massive tax write-off attached to it. The management team just buys themselves another shot at the game. Think about the mechanics of this. They can take that $200 million in cash, go buy a totally separate, highly profitable business, and use those massive tax losses to offset the new profits.
Yep.
If the new business makes $100 million in profit, they'd usually pay huge taxes. Now they pay zero. Survival by any means necessary.
It's a brilliant, purely financial maneuver, and it really forces you to zoom out and ask what a company even is anymore.
What do you mean?
Well, is a company its product? Is it a ruthless operational system like bending spoons? Or is it just a financial vehicle holding tax losses like Domo? Because there's this growing idea taking hold that the best charity of the next 50 years might actually be structured as a traditional for-profit company.
How does that actually work in practice?
Because of the sheer scale of wealth generation being driven by AI, we might see a massive shift in how philanthropy operates. You've got mission-driven founders who realize that traditional nonprofits just move way too slowly and constantly have to beg for grants.
Right.
So they integrate massive profit mechanisms with societal good, health improvements, environmental benefits. The financial growth of the company becomes directly mechanically tied to positive outcomes for society.
So the line between a traditional, slow-moving nonprofit and a massive, ruthless business just completely blurs into one entity.
We're watching the very definition of a corporation break apart and reform in real time. The boundaries between automation and human taste, between charity and profit, they're all dissolving. The companies that survive the next decade won't look anything like the ones we built in the last.
A vocal technologist, see you soon.
Spoken Tech for your ears.